Accessing Secure Channel. The Agent Files, where aspiring agents rise and masters flourish. Powered by Agent Builder Coaching. Mission initiated. File loading.
Hi there, this is Peter Fan for Agent Builder Coaching, and in today's episode of the Agent Files, we're addressing the almost agents, the people that are pretty much finished with their pre-licensing education and getting ready to actually join the real estate industry in their preparations. And it's an important period of time in which you can do an awful lot of things, but you have to be a little bit cautious to not get into activities that are requiring a license. So you can't actually go out and market yourself, although we're going to talk about marketing right now. But you can't create the impression that you are a licensed real estate agent. That would certainly be a breach. However, you can start preparing for things. You can set up yourself. So that's why we're going to talk about marketing 101, because there is a fair amount of stuff that requires a little bit of thinking, a little bit of processing, a little bit of coming to grips with. And some of it is literally taking inventory, taking stock of yourself and who you are, how you want to represent yourself and what you want to represent. Okay, so again, today's episode is all about marketing 101. I would by no means want to suggest to you that this is the end-all be-all about all marketing. It is truly an introductory. But think about this. Your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. Your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. Now, that was just Jeff Bezos. And I guess he knows a little bit something about marketing and branding, seeing that he runs if it's not the largest company in the world, it is one of the largest companies in the world. Again, not endorsing one company or another. I don't get paid by anybody to do this stuff. So, but he does represent a very significant brand. So he's got some credibility as to what that actually means. Okay. So let's talk about this in a practical pre-licensing manner. The objective of marketing is to become recognizable, to become memorable, to have a top of mind awareness, and a preferred status with your target audience. So if you market to a neighborhood, an age group, a professional relationship, a personal relationship, some form of connection that you want to make that is memorable, that is repeatable, what would that look, feel, and act like? And that could be in a statement, can be in a logo, can be in something that is consistent, right? And just look around. You see brands everywhere, literally everywhere. I mean, whether it is in coffee, whether it's in restaurants, in fast foods, in entertainment, in sports, anything and everybody has some form of a brand. And for some reason or another in the world of real estate, that tends to become your name. Again, nothing necessarily wrong about that, but how does that relate? How does that connect outside of your own marketplace? Right? Keep in mind that in most marketplaces in North America, and yes, we're talking specifically in Canada, I would say 20 to 25% of your target audience or your potential buyers and sellers are probably not living or familiar with local situations. So how do you look? How do you present? How do you represent outside of your marketplace can therefore have an impact on your overall marketability. Now, I I have told stories about my previous life before real estate in the book business, and one of my favorite stories was an actual event with a client, a book buying client, but also, as it so happened to be, a radio and music performer, entertainer. He was a radio announcer, did some radio shows, call them talk shows, but on the radio, because in those days television wasn't quite as widely distributed. And he was also a singer and had recorded some albums. And he and I got along quite well, and so we periodically would do things together. And one of those little outings was to go to a public market, or what you would here call a farmer's market, I suppose. But in the Netherlands, there's day markets pretty much in every community, either every other day or a couple of times a week or what have you. During one of those walks, we walked by a vendor who was selling music cassettes. This is how old this story is. In those days, those mini cassettes, the not quite the 8 tracks, but the ones that are a little smaller, and not the mini cassettes. It was a reel-to-reel type tape in a little cassette holder. You put it in your radio, you put it in your car, and music came out. And he recognized that, hey, there was an album that he had done as a long play LP that was there as a cassette. And he said, hey, I've never made that. So this is a bootleg. This is a copy. And he didn't actually get upset. He was kind of more intrigued by it. And so he said to the vendor, I'm curious, to find my cassette recording here, because I know I never made one. We never produced one. And the vendor on the other side of the booth, the stall, kind of said, well, it's better to find yourself here than in the cemetery, which was kind of in Dutch, it was a funny joke, but, it sounds a bit sinister and a little bit crude, but it was actually intended to give the man a compliment, and he had recognized him, of course. And by the way, this particular friend of mine, or acquaintance of mine, was quite well known in the Netherlands for a song that he had recorded, Tulips from Amsterdam. If you ever look it up, it's kind of a nice song about life in Amsterdam. And we carried on, and we did actually comment about it. And he actually used the story later on in a radio program. So he recognized that, hey, he was being remembered and recognized. And it was actually, he took it as a bit of a compliment in those days. Nowadays, we would probably get more upset about copyright infringements and all of that kind of stuff. But he actually took it as a compliment that somebody had taken the time, effort, and energy to convert an LP into a music cassette. And he thought it was actually a cool thing. So he saw it as a marketing opportunity. See, that's how you take things. Anyway, but awareness, right? The fact that people need to become aware of you becoming, or you're being, a real estate professional is key in what you're trying to do, particularly in the early days of your real estate career. Just keep in mind, right? People know you, maybe, and maybe a lot more people know you from what you were, what you used to do, and how they connected with you before real estate. So if you were a school teacher, guess what? That's how they view you. That's how they perceive you. And that's how they remember and recognize you. What it becomes important is that when real estate comes up in their conversation, in their life, in their circumstances, that you come up rather than whoever was there before. Because, as we said in many other episodes, everybody knows a bunch of realtors. Everybody does. There's very few people that know fewer than 5 real estate agents. So you are always somewhat in competition with all the other realtors that are licensed in your area, but in particular, you are always kind of in somewhat of competition with the 4 or 5 people that are already in the minds of your sphere of influence, your friends, your family members, your acquaintances, your past colleagues, your people that you share a hobby or a sport or an interest, or religious experience, musical experience, theatrical entertainment experience. There are always other agents in the mind of other people. And now you somehow need to earn the respect, the credibility, and therefore the potential referrals and or direct business from them. That's what marketing does. That's what marketing is intended to do. Richard Traub wrote a book, Positioning: The Battle for Your Mind. And it's really that. It's not necessarily a battle, but it is about positioning so that your name, your presence, your availability becomes the first thing that people think about if and when real estate comes up. And you can test this for yourself a little bit, right? If when you think about food, what is the first thing that comes to mind? What brand comes to mind first? Is it a fast food restaurant? Is it a fancy restaurant? Or is it home cooked? Or is it a certain food? The same with the drink. For some people, it's coffee, tea. But what brand in particular comes up? So those brands have taken a top position in your mind and having some sort of a preferential place. Now, what you want to become is that person, that entity, if and when real estate comes up in the conversation with the people that you particularly target. And again, that could be your sphere of influence, could be your friends. So that's kind of the primary objective of marketing. It is therefore nuanced a little bit differently than lead generation, where you distinctly ask for business. Now, marketing is more about the more broadly understood presence that you are there if and when, where lead generation is much more direct and proactive. Okay. So you build that reputation. You can build that reputation now to some degree. If you were past of in the past listen to our earlier sessions about thinking about a career in real estate, then you will have heard me say that you telling the story of you getting into the business of real estate is actually part of that pre-licensing marketing. Again, you can't solicit business, but you can tell the story that, hey, you've done another assignment and you've passed this test and passed that test, and you read this book and read that book, and you're learning this and you're learning that, without actively seeking business. But you're starting to change not only your mind and your own state of activity in your head, so to speak, but also the mind of others. They start recognizing you that, hey, this is a transition that you're going through. And it makes it so much easier for you to launch your business if and when you actually do become licensed. Okay, now pay attention in your jurisdiction to compliance in your jurisdiction. In British Columbia, BCFSA, each jurisdiction will have their own real estate council, guidelines to advertising and marketing, and there will be on the websites of these regulators specific criteria of things that you can or you cannot do. And it typically boils down to anything that gives the consumer the impression that you are a licensee in that province or in that jurisdiction. Okay, and you've got to be very, very careful because you don't want to derail your career before you even start. Of course, it's really, that would be so very, very, very counterproductive. Okay, so what you can do is share your journey, like I just said. Right? Create a local lifestyle content, like start talking with small businesses, small or bigger businesses, and the experience of doing business with them, or interview them, or start helping other brands in order for you to establish your own brand. I oftentimes tell this story, and it's a real story in the sense that I don't actually know the agent. I've never actually met her because I've never been in Miami. Well, no, I shouldn't say that. I have been in Miami, Florida, but not for that purpose. So in Miami, Florida, there's a realtor that for the longest period of time, and I have seen her materials, she would market herself as somebody that knew everything about mojitos. Now you would think, well, what is that about? It has nothing to do with real estate. But in that area, in that region, mojitos are a popular drink, and there's many different recipes and niches and flavors. Now, I to be honest with you, I don't drink at all, so I don't know anything of that subculture at all. But I do remember her being very consistent with that message, that she would go to bars and restaurants, not to drink, but to interview the owners and ask them about what recipes do you use and what are your ingredients and where do you source them and that yada yada. So she would have a very lively conversations and videos and images and whatever else. And it left impressions. And because of that, she raised her profile in the community to business opportunities, right? All the businesses that she would frequent and talk about and feature on her videos and blog posts and written materials and what have you. And of course, going there with some of her clients and slowly but gradually starting to get referrals from people and people inquiring about Miami and how things were going. It was a very strategic decision for her to brand and market herself in that way. Okay, and it worked for her. I'm not just suggesting for a moment that it is for everybody, but the context of branding yourself here is very apropos, right? It's so, and it also kind of in the context of the seven essentials. You think about your superpower. Your superpower is what you're passionate about. Well, your brand and your passion can very much be aligned, right? If you're very passionate about, I don't know, the welfare of dogs in your community, well, you can brand alongside of that, right? You could sponsor events. You can, um, adopt a park. Whatever you want to do in that context that put you in the middle with your brand and your activities to be consistent with each other so that people go like, oh yeah, he or she is the dog person, right? So now if you look at my own brand and it's right over top of me, it's the word fantastic, right? It's my last name spelled in a way, spelled as my last name, but using the word fantastic in that context. And I've used it for, I'm going to say, pretty much from the first day on in my career in real estate. And it's never gone dull or stale. It's still, to this day, people remember me for that one word. Now, you can fill in the blanks beyond there and whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, but it has made me somewhat recognizable because of that. It just and it doesn't have to be a wordplay on your own name. It could be all kinds of things. There's a realtor here locally. Her first name is Faith. Well, I said, hey, why aren't you using your first name as part of your brand? And she decided to do that. Right? And so she says, every dream home starts with faith. Right? And so, I mean, it's a good line. Right? So there you go. You can sit in front of a piece of paper and start thinking about what you want to represent and how you would want to represent yourself. Okay. Now, does that include a logo? Does it include colors and headshots and taglines? I kind of, sort of, but it doesn't have to all come in one fell swoop. These things will evolve, and sometimes it actually changes for some people. Okay. But you using things like blogs and videos and social media, getting ready for you to launch, you can certainly start, becoming a real entity in the local marketplace doing that kind of stuff. Now, what you can't do is say that you're marketing a listing or advertise buyers or seller services or claim to be a licensed realtor or any of that stuff. You can't do, right? You can't give transactional advice in person or on social media or any of that stuff. That's just not on until you are actually licensed. So you've got to draw the line very clearly and be cautious and aware that what you do can both help you, but it can definitely also harm you, right? Because if it goes out there in the cyber world, it's not ever going to go away. So everything you do can be used against you, is what somebody said many years ago, and sometimes it will be used against you. Okay, so as far as callers, I would use 2, maybe 3 callers, not too over complex. Create some simple taglines, right? Some positioning statement. What do you do? How do you do things, right? And then, get a few headshots done. Now, personally, I'm not actually really into photography as to photographs of myself. Why? Because I'm an old dude now, and looking at myself, I go like, oh no. The body doesn't represent the mind. I still think much younger than I look, so I don't really want to use that. But that's up to each own. So I nowadays use kind of some cartoons, and I had them made by a guy on Fiverr, and didn't cost a whole lot of money. And I've a few versions in it. See them on my logos and my bits and pieces, and it seems to work for me. Right? Again, it's just an extension of the brand, and you know, good, bad, or indifferent. That's my choice, and you make your own choices. What and how do you want to represent, right? And then start with a calendar of how am I going to connect with people. Certainly between now and your actual launch date, if you picked a date or picked a month, or an event by which you say, okay, now I'm going to launch myself, then move towards that, and then beyond, right? You look at, okay, I'm going to lead up to it. I'm going to increase my profile, my community awareness, because I hate to tell you, being a secret agent doesn't work. Okay, so you do have to raise your overall profile in the community. Doesn't mean that you have to be, an extrovert or be at every part. No, it doesn't mean that at all. But it does mean that people need to know and need to have a way to reach you, connect with you, and communicate with you. And you can't do that in secrecy, right? So you do have to put yourself out there to some degree. There's just, I don't think it works any other way. And if there is, please let somebody correct me, but I haven't seen that in the last 40 years. So, and then decide how you want to be known in your market. I remember one lady, she, everywhere she went, she wore a big red hat, and that was her thing. And on her card, it would say the lady with the red hat. And, I don't think she actually had any other reason for it than it made her memorable. Right? I remember an agent in Maple Ridge who would drive around in a kind of one of those 1970s Woody's type station wagon. And he had a model house, like a little playhouse on top of his station wagon, with signs on it that, hey, enter the draw for your free garden house. And that's how he collected names from people, right? Because he figured, hey, if people need a garden house, they probably have kids and they need a bigger house. And he did do a fair amount of business because of that. Now, that was his approach, not mine. I would never do that kind of thing, but it worked for him, right? So how do you want to be known? So as an exercise, here's a pretty good exercise. So write 3 words that describe you, that come from the heart, come from the inside, and then ask other people, by the way, to do the same thing. Give me 3 words that you think describe me. It helps if you get a bit of input from people that know you either on a personal level, on a professional level, but let them. And so now you have a list of words that represent you, and you can play with that. You can start putting sentences together and paragraphs together and taglines together, and it's important. I'm going to suggest one thing in that is that think about not just the local aspect of your marketplace, but how do people connect with you, not by way of an address, but connect with you by way of your statement, your presence, where you are, what marketplace you represent, because not everybody's local, right? And I see way too many agents doing a lot of work, but forget something pretty critical as to identify what market they serve or what type of clients they want to serve. That's another question that you sometimes can't see from the marketing, and it's kind of an important one. Right? If you specialize in wanting to work with seniors, why not say so? Right? And it's first-time homebuyers, investors, developers, people that want to downsize, that want to upsize, people with great careers, people in high tech, or people with kids or pets. It doesn't matter. Right? It's your choice. It's your choice. Trying to be a generalist in this business oftentimes also makes you part of the big masses and therefore less memorable. Right? It's kind of a balancing act where you want to identify and articulate yourself well enough. And yeah, this may take a little bit of research for you to really dig into where the market is and what also resonates with you so that you can combine the two and it makes your life so much easier. Okay. Now, yes, talk about compliance. You have to be drafting stuff initially to be compliant with the rules and the regulations, right? So statements like, "Hey, I'm call me now because I'm almost ready to be in real estate," not a good statement, right? But excited to be preparing for my career in real estate, it's probably all right, right? Nuance differences, and to be clear, right? Choose your color palette and font set. And again, use consistency. Create accounts that start working towards this career in real estate, right? And if you want to, want to create professional or business pages, you can start playing with that a little bit in anticipation. But again, you got to be cautious that you are compliant with the rules and guidelines. If you are in BC, but in many other jurisdictions, you will find on the regulators' websites advertising and marketing guidelines as to what you can and what you can't do. And if you are licensed, it's very, very clear. If you're not licensed, it's a little less clear because it's in two different places. You first have to look at what you can and what you can't do as an unlicensed person, and then have to overlay the marketing guidelines on top of that. But you still can't do a lot of this stuff if you're not licensed. Okay, so but you can certainly prepare for it. Okay. Marketing as a pricing is planting seeds. It's not actually asking for business. It's not selling. You can educate and you can kind of transform the perception that people have of you from your past to your present, right? To your future. And making that transition as quickly and as smooth and as almost organic as possible by you telling the stories is a great way to do that. Consistency is more important than perfection. Okay, and you're going to hear this over and over and over again. Consistency, continuity is way more important than you trying to figure out the best slogan. Just get something out there and it will organically start taking shape over time. Okay. Focus on storytelling, authenticity, say that 5 times fast, and value, right? How you add value to another person's life. Build trust, right? Build trust. It is so important. People will not do business with people that they don't trust. And if they do, they're going to be very, very hard to deal with. So build trust is a really key part of what you're doing now, right? Don't be salesy. Don't be asking for business or referrals or all of that stuff. No, tell the story. The relationship will form, and you can then nurture and build on that relationship. It's so important. Okay. Here's some action items. Write and schedule 3 compliance safe social media posts. Choose and document your brand colors and tagline. Start in image, logos, whatever that's going to look like. In that context, just as a side note, you may also want to start thinking about, what is my URL? What is my website address? Is it your name? If so, register it. You don't have to activate it, but if that's what you're going to use, your name, then use that. If it's something else, right? We've got a bunch of them. So I have Fantastic at my name. I have Agent Builder Coaching. I have Agent Files. There's a whole bunch of them that we use or not use, right? That we just literally forward from a URL that people might be looking for, and then forward it to our real estate site or to our agent coaching site. Okay. And sometimes we abandon URLs. But for the most part, we kind of keep them alive. Right now, for example, we have 2 that we use. One is called the Greater Victoria Lifestyles. Right? It says nothing about me, but it is clear what it's about. Right? And we have a similar one that says Cowichan Valley Lifestyles. And but you take a pick. But your URL can be quite important. Okay, draft a 30-day, 60-day, depending on how long you're going to be before you're actually active. But anywhere between a 30 to 60-day plan with some calendars and what have you. And then share a story. Right? Share a story. Where are you at this point in time, and how soon will you be licensed, and what's your plan, and what's going on, right? Tell a story. And if you do it on video, great. And even if it fumbles a bit, it's all right. I'm fumbling all the time on these videos, and I have now decided that, unless it is a really big faux pas, I'm not redoing things. Why? Because it just stops the organic nature of these things. And for me, it's a conversation with you, right? And I want to keep it as natural as possible. Can I deliver exact scripts? I probably could, but it'll feel a whole lot more artificial. And to me, it's important that it kind of feels as real as possible, even though it's a recorded session, of course. Now, here are some books. Again, Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. Good book. Crushing It. Good materials. And then CREA, the Code of Ethics, kind of the 10 Commandments, as we call them sometimes. But the Code of Ethics from CREA, you can download it from CREA's website anytime. You don't have to be licensed to do that. I think it's a really good benchmark as core understanding what you can and what you can't do on an ethical level. And by the way, there are people that get penalized for breaches of the Code of Ethics. So it's not an empty set of commandment of statements. Now, and again, depending on the province that you're in, I would encourage you to download all of the marketing and advertising guidelines from your regulator and keep it on record, and check in from time to time with your regulator on those things, because they're living entities, right? AI, for example, is changing a lot of this stuff, right? Because so many people are now using AI to create anything, marketing, images, videos, and AI isn't absolute. It isn't bad. It isn't good. It is just like any garbage in, garbage out. The better information that you provide, the better the answers are going to be. But it isn't absolutely right or absolutely wrong. And it 9 out of 10 cases, the first 5 or 6 tries on anything are not the best. Okay, so anyway. To stick to the marketing side of things, it is important that you may get some inspiration from something, but try to stay real. Try to stay you. Okay. And if you have any questions about any of this stuff, I just call us, talk to us, right? We want to help. We're here to help as much as we can. And, it'd be our pleasure to assist you any which way possible. So have a fantastic week and hope to see you at the next Agent File.
File saved. The Agent Files. For more missions, agents' tools, and tactical strategies, subscribe and follow the Agent Files, powered by Agent Builder Coaching. Until next time, stay sharp. Your next mission awaits.